you should be able to get it. Meaning, then the awareness will start, and that will bypass the mind. So that's the secret way of working. Even that.
Can you say again?
See, first and foremost, we need to see that there is two things. One is sense and sense objects and mind. So you have to, the mind itself has to feel. All this spiritual thing is to make the mind feel that there is something other than the mind.
Other than the mind means sense and sense objects.
No. Mind has sense and sense object. There is
outside of that. Okay.
There is another power which is higher than the mind and the sense object. Call it as God, call it as whatever name to be given.
Superpower, yes.
Okay. Now, once the mind lets go of its hold, because it itself has the energy, that is what is called as reflected or reflection or reflective consciousness. Okay, so if we were to drop that off and feel that there is a supreme being which does not have any kind of barriers, if that can be done, then the mind transcends it by itself, because it is the mind which has to transcend. There is no person to transcend. So initially there is a person. Later we come to know that there is no person because we observe that everything is a process, and we come to know that the process is controlled by the mind. Then we purify the mind through the mind itself. Then it starts reflecting the consciousness as is instead of having distortion. So the process will improve because the karma is changed, or it might not bother at all because the process is a process. So you can fix the process. The person is a process. There is no real person sitting there. That clarity, when it happens, becomes surrender to the Supreme, because the person was the barrier and he always thought that he exists and the divine also exists. Now he comes to know that the divine only exists. There is no he who was existing. It's just a process. So our yesterday discussion was to understand the process, right from breathing to digestion to all the activities a person or a being performs in the samsara is a process, including sleeping. If a person wants to sleep, he cannot sleep, or he might not be able to sleep. Only if the right condition is provided to sleep, the person will sleep. Otherwise, he cannot sleep. This clarity we need to have. Whether we follow this or that or whatever, that is separate. So, any question before we go into the Vivekachudamani?
Yeah. See, we are trying to move from the worldly things to the other side, spiritual. And we are trying to do all these practice, but in a very simplistic way, if you have to put this one, if you are focusing on something, if you have a ability to be there, then my problem is solved. Now what happens now? I keep trying. For example, you take object or maybe on breathing itself. When you focus there, after some time, naturally you go to, your mind starts moving to some other direction. After some time, that time varies from person to person. It doesn't stay there. I think that is the whole issue now. That's the reason we call that yoga and try to control it. again we have conditioned our mind that you have to go through this one. What do you call up to Nidhidhyasana side. Okay, then you continuously do that. That's what you are telling. Correct. This all again we have conditioned our mind. Instead of that, forget all this teaching. Don't have to do anything. Try to focus and try to be there. Then you have achieved your, I can say, the goal without complicating all these things. Whether you are attaching, detaching, moha, bandhana, raga, dvesha, and all that. Because that comes to my mind, our mind automatically. Instead, don't think anything. Simply try to focus and increase your that focusing. What you call for attention time. We keep on increasing. When you increase, then you will be there. See, for example, I was before sleep. I think 2 weeks ago I was talking about. I was trying to watch my own sleep when I am getting sleep. Just watch. Actually, in this process, what happened is my sleeping pattern is changed all of a sudden. Because earlier, the moment you go to bed, within 1 hour, you are fully in. Then it changed because it's trained that way, that you watch. The moment I go to sleep, now automatically now I should remember, I'm going to sleep now. Let me analyze that. So then now again I am back to normal. I am not trying that. But focusing. See, when I am in, for example, puja room, I am trying to focus on some mantra or some object, maybe that lamp itself. But the focusing attention is only limited to, I can say, not even a minute, less than that. Why then your mind unknowingly going to somewhere else? It is without knowledge. Simply your mind start thinking about office or something else. My question is here: how to control it? How to increase that span? If I focus fully, that is spirituality. I know. Wherever I want to focus, that means I am able to control my mind. That control my mind itself is a wrong thought. I know it's a control again coming another factor. So it should happen in a very natural way. How to do that?
No, that is why the reason I said first one is the moral. Without that moral, see, the consciousness is fully moral. It has no immorality at all. Mind has both moral and immoral. Okay. Without making the mind shine towards the moral, no matter how much we try to keep the mind in one attention, it might not happen. It will happen for a few minutes and it goes away. Because there is something which is breaking there in terms of morality. But so now a question comes, look, I am not doing any immoral activities. I am not talking about that kind of immoral activities. The attraction to something itself is immoral. Hatredness to something itself is immoral. Thinking that I exist itself is immoral. All the three are immoral. As far as the consciousness goes, these three are immoral. So now when I have raga, dvesha, moha, in whichever quantity it is, the mind will latch on to that because it is comfortable. It cannot see the consciousness. So it requires an external element to remove that kind of thing. So it can be kirtans for some people, it can be classical music for some people, it can be the dasa sahitya for some people. It can be anything which will distract that mind from being immoral. Meaning, it has to let go of that attachment to raga, dvesha, moha. So, unless that happens, the mind cannot reflect the consciousness. Simple thing. I just now had this upma. The name is called upma. The food is a food. It doesn't matter. So, if I am grateful to the food, that the food is coming, then the nama and the rupa is gone. If I have an attraction towards that upma and I have a hatredness towards that upma, let's say, if I have attraction, I will eat more. If I have repulsion, I will not eat. I will ask my wife to prepare something else. But from consciousness perspective, food is a food. It is not immoral. It doesn't bother. So, using that, by establishing morality, one can see it from consciousness itself through the mind. Now, what happens? The food comes. The person is highly grateful to the person who prepared it and eats without a complaint. Whether he likes upma or he might not like upma, it doesn't matter. What matters is that he has to have the brahmacharya. So he is focused on that, or she is focused on that. And that's all what is binding. Nothing else is binding. So, without doing this, let's say the way you are saying is that why require all these philosophies and all that? Perfect. We really don't require philosophies at all, because it is time consuming, it is confusing, and it doesn't yield to anything. So that means Shravana portion of it most of the time will remain in Shravana itself. It doesn't even come to Manana. Let's say we take breath and we are constantly engaged in breath. That is sufficient enough to break the cycle of samsara. But the thing is that that person should do it all the time. So Shiva explains this to Parvati, that I will give one simple thing to the humans to do. Let them engage in watching the breath. So she says, this is the most easiest anybody can do. And he says that it is even difficult than anything else, because the moment a person starts watching the breath will take him to another dimension, which is samsara. So it will automatically take him to the different kinds of ideas, opinions, and all that, and the person mind is pulled towards it, because the vayu has the ability to pull, to move. So it is not easy to establish using the breath. Now, if the breath cannot be done, then what else can be done? So the second one is mantra. Repeating a mantra is going to benefit, because it will distract the mind from the worldly things. Fantastic. After some time, it gets bored. So again, it will go off into another direction. This is the second problem. This mantra can be done in two ways. One is a japa kind of mantra, that is, you keep on repeating the same thing, and tapa kind of mantra, that means you heat it up and try to invoke the fire and throw all the impurities in the fire. Whichever way it looks or to be done, it is done through the mind. So mind is already conditioned in a wrong way. You cannot remove the conditionality of the mind, because mind is something which has to be conditioned. The only thing which is unconditioned is the consciousness. Consciousness doesn't arise and go away because of any condition. It's there. When the condition comes, it becomes dependent on that condition, and it stays there till the condition is there. And when the condition goes away, it goes away. It doesn't care with whom am I staying and is it the right person to stay or whatever. If there is no condition, it doesn't arise. If there is a condition, it arises. So the mind is part of the Prakriti, and Prakriti is conditioned. So what are we trying to achieve is, we are trying to make the mind more reformed towards the consciousness than towards the worldly thing. Now, what is worldly? World means creation of five senses. That's it. So the first ground is to work out on the senses, then the mind. So for working on the senses, for withdrawal of the senses, you need to have morality. The more the moral, the easier is to break the connection between the senses and the sense object. The more the immoral, the more bound they are together. This is the reason why in every tradition, the first foundation is moral, that is yama and niyama. Or if you go to Shankara, he talks about the sadhana jatishtaya along with the shad sampatti, without which going any further is like drowning in the river of samsara, because you need to have that and a raft ready for you to take it there, because you is the mind only, there is no other thing than that. Would that answer?
Yes.
So it all depends on moral. It doesn't depend upon how many hours we are sitting or how many hours we are doing what. It doesn't really matter. What matters is how much of this yama and niyama has been put in place.
Yeah, yama niyama brings our mind very cool, because no expectations, it's only the duty what we are doing.
Yes. So then what happens? The mind loses its touch over raga, dvesha, moha. So then it reflects the consciousness.
So other things will automatically happen. These two things are within our control.
These are the only two things in your control, yama and niyama. There's nothing else you can do. See, first step, yama niyama. Second step, you will start observing the sense object and you will come to know what this sense object made it of. Let me give you an example. So now, earlier, at least 1 year ago, if I were to take, even though I was doing all these discourses and everything, there was a gap in I seeing the object. Okay, what is that gap? I still used to feel the person is human being. Now today I don't feel it. That raga comes for a second, but then it is cut off immediately. So the vairagya comes when you see really what that person is. So the person is made out of 4 elements and 1 consciousness, or rather 5 elements and 1 consciousness. That's all. If I can establish this with everyone, then what happens to the wife? What happens to the son? What happens to the parent or in-laws or friends or colleagues or whatever? They just turn themselves into name and there is no form. Absolutely, there is no form of a wife. And nobody has seen till date how a wife looks. They've seen a body, but it's not the wife which we are interested in. Because when that girl was born, she was not a wife. She was having some name, and even today she has the same name. But the designation or the role that person is playing is the wife. So no matter how much I try to search for that person, it can never appear, never come. What I see is the 4 elements plus space, 5th element. So the 4 elements are moving because the consciousness is making them move. If the consciousness were not to be there, there's no movement. So it falls down. So where is the wife? It was never there. Today also is not there. Tomorrow also will not be there. It is only fabrication of the mind to believe that a wife exists. So this truth I am now sure of, no doubt. Last year it was not there. This year, right now, it is there. So the difference. Moral value increases, this will go away. This madness of considering somebody as a wife, considering somebody as a son, considering somebody as mother, father, brother, sister, all that goes away. But what comes inside that is that a person becomes highly grateful for those people who have given shelter. So the parents become a real thing because they have given the body, they have given the environment and all that. So that remains. But the madness of attaching to the mother or the father or to the wife or to the son or to the daughter, or to the home, or to anything goes away. That's Vairagya. Why? Because a person can see that this is just five elements, nothing else. And he didn't bring it, or rather, I did not bring. So when I'm right now sitting on the couch where I'm sitting, that is made out of a particular material that is either hard or soft, that the manufacturer did not bring in. That is the quality of that product itself. And that is an inherent quality. Nobody brought it. Now I bought it. The moment I buy it, how it becomes mine? Did I own the softness and hardness? No. And when I'm sitting on this couch, that place is becoming hot. The body heat is getting transferred to the couch. So, did I enable that to happen? That let this much of heat go inside this couch? No. If anybody sits on anywhere, after some time, the body heat can be felt if somebody sits on that. So he did not bring the heat. So it is just five elements. So we can observe this. There is nothing more spiritual than that. So once we see everything is made out of these five elements and consciousness arises and departs based upon the condition, the person no longer exists. It's only play of consciousness with five elements: Prakriti and Purusha. Prakriti has the elements, Purusha has the life. So they both are mingling. Now, if I start watching them, mind is the one which is having a terrible confusion that these five elements were brought by me. Now it knows whether I like it or not, it is there outside also, it is there inside also. The inside one is considered as myself, but the same heat or cold, or let us say the movement of the air or the water which is binding, like if I were to make a chapati, the wheat flour, if somebody puts water on that, it binds. Same thing with the skin, it is bound. It's not that I brought anything over there. So when we start seeing it like this, you feel that you don't exist for sure. So the clarity is got. With clarity, the consciousness just reveals itself, because everything is brought out by the consciousness. Mind has no role to play. So this is the awareness, or this is the observation what a person needs to do in order to see how things are unfolding. Then comes samskaras. On top of that comes karma, and then comes the vasana. So the samskaras are being done by the person, thinking that he is doing it. If he becomes aware that these samskaras are just the process, whether he does it, he doesn't do it, eventually he has to do it. It's just like going to the toilet and going for urination. It doesn't matter if I say I am going for urination, I am taking bath, I am brushing my teeth, I am doing this and doing that. It is all samskaras only. There's nothing else other than a samskara. And he doesn't get attached to the samskara. If he doesn't get attached to the samskara, it doesn't matter what karma comes there. So the vasanas will get exhausted very easily. So now his mind is established in that divine, because now the mind reflects what the divine is, meaning it doesn't have any polarities at all, no dualities. So now he is Advaita. Any further?
Fine. You can proceed. I will join after 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries. Lata, you have any question?
No, not right now.
Okay. And Padmashri, no question, as usual.
No, Vilas.
Only when the bhakti comes, I'll find that you are charged up. So I think we need to talk something on bhakti.
I think let's talk about bhakti.
Yes, so then we can make Padmashri speak.
No, because finally I try to equate what all you're saying in that state, except that I stopped to give a name and form to what should be the thing which we are concentrating on. And any name you can give it, because Brahman is also a name which we have coined it.
Yes, exactly.
Nobody told us that is called Brahman and you should call it Brahman. Nobody told us. So that is the reason I feel whatever you're saying is very applicable to that. But there is no, as I feel it, there is no analysis. The intellect is not too deeply involved in the whole thing. But finally, the practically whatever is attained is the same thing, is what I feel.
See, the thing is about Brahman, for a second, if you were to see, there is no person called Brahman. It is a state of mind. So what is the state of that mind? Is complete awareness and completely opened up. Has no barriers. So what is the barrier here? Barrier here is Raga, Dvesha, Moha. If these three things are not there, then the person's mind is completely expanded. It goes beyond anything. So there is no conditionality. So mind has a conditionality. Now the mind doesn't have any conditions. With unconditioned, it can experience what it itself is, which is a reflected consciousness. So when the person dies, the mind doesn't have any more footing because the consciousness doesn't arise again. It is in Nirodha. So when the chittas are in Nirodha, there is no further rebirth. Simple. So the choice of the word of Brahman is just to say that Brah is to expand, Man is the mind, expanded mind. But that not being understood by many, they put Brahman as a state to go. There is no state to go there. There's nothing like you go and establish there. It is right here, right now. It's just an expansive state of mind when you don't exist. You means that individual consciousness with the mind does not exist. And the chitta is the individual consciousness. The objects which are coming out of the chitta is the mind. So they both don't exist. So the bhakti, shraddha, whatever we are talking about, jnana, vairagya, all that is part of removing this consciousness which arises and passes away along with the mind, telling it that, boss, you are not the person, there is another person who is much divine than you, which has got nothing to do with you. So why don't you listen to me and see up? That person is the one who is doing all of this, not you. So why don't you surrender to that which is taking care of you? And now when he lifts its head, it sees that, oh my goodness, this person is shining on me. Okay, let me surrender. And that is the bhakti. So now having seen that, it has got shraddha, faith. Now it got jnana, knowledge. That okay, I have no role to play as myself. I am a role player. So as far as I am supposed to play the role, I'll be playing the role. The day I am supposed to get out of this, I will get out of it. That's all. For that we have defined so many different things in different traditions and different ideologies and all that. Okay, so shall we continue on the Vivekachudamani? Okay.
Yep.
So verse number 231, whatever I spoke, it is here. This entire universe is Brahman. Brahma eva idam vishwam iti. I think we had covered it, but I'll still read it. Eva vani Shrauti Brute Atharva Nishtha Varishtha Tasmat Etad Brahma Matram Hi Vishwam Na Adhishthanat Bhinnata Arupitasya. So this entire universe is the Brahman, and it has been declared by the Shrutis. This is what the Atharva Veda empathetically declares and informs. Therefore, Brahman alone is indeed this universe. For no superimposition, Adhishthanat is establishment over something. Can there be Bhinnat Aropitasya, that is independent to this substratum? So this consciousness does not require any superimposition. It itself exists. So he talks about three defects. Satyam yadi syad jagat etat.
But has dropped off, is it?
Yeah, Bhatt has gone. He is going to come back at 9:30. So Atmanaha Anantatva Hanihi Nigama Apara Apramanata Asatya Vaditvam Api Ishittuhu Syat Na Etat Trayam Sadhu Hitam Mahatmanam. If the universe ever is regarded as a reality, Atmanah Anantatva Hanihi, the self would lose its infinitude. It cannot anymore be called as infinite. The Vedic scriptures would lose their validity. The Lord will bear the defect of being a liar. None of these three is considered acceptable or wholesome by pure-minded souls. That means if anybody were to say that Jagat is Satya and Brahman is Satya, he has not understood the scriptures. Because then the defect is that Brahman is finite, scriptures are false, and whatever is said as the Lord or the God is a liar. Because the world cannot be real. World is appearing from the consciousness. World by itself cannot exist without consciousness. So he gives some examples from the Gita. Ishvaraha vastu tattvajnanaha nacha aham teshu avastitaha nacha mastani bhutani iti evam eva vyachikritpitaha. So Ishvaraha vastu tattvajnanaha, the Lord knows the secret of all things. Nacha aham teshu avastitaha, but I do not live in them. Nacha mastani bhutani, nor do being exist in me. Iti evam eva vyachiklipitaha. These words are from the Gita, supports the view. So I am not in them. Brahman is not there in the joys and sorrows experienced by the man in this world. And they are not in me because they are not really there. They only appear there. They are not real objects. but only the apparent in nature. It is like reflection. The reflected surface, the person who is getting reflected on that mirror, the mirror doesn't feel anything. The person feels something, but not the mirror. So he says, second example is that universe is false and unreal. Yadi satyam bhavet vishwam shushuptau upalabdhyattam yat na upalabdhyate kinchid ataha asat swapnavat mrisha. If the universe were true, it would have been perceived even in deep sleep state. So the person should perceive the world in deep sleep. As it is not perceived there, it must be like a dream, false and unreal. It by itself cannot have anything like that. So then he says in verse number 235, he says that since the world does not exist independent of the Supreme Self, ataha pritak na asti jagat paratmanah, the notion of separateness is a false, and that reality possessing any qualities also does not exist. Pritak pratitihi tu brisha guna divat. Can there be an independent superimposition? Aropitasya asti kim arthavata vatta. In fact, the substratum itself is mistaken to be a superimposition through delusion. Adhishthanam abhati tataha brahmena. What it means is, it's like this. The senses give a false perception to the mind that the sense objects are real. First problem. Mind starts believing that it can somehow possess the sense objects through the senses. This is the second problem. The third problem is the mind is run by the chitta, which arises and passes away, and the chitta considers that it is chit itself, but it is not. This is the third problem. And hence all these three becomes part of Jagat. Because in the Jagat only you have Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara. And Ishvara is part of Brahman. So there is no separate Ishvara appearing out there. So now what happens is, since there is delusion, the person thinks that the process itself is the person. And it happens so fast that the process gives an opinion or a way of looking like it's a person doing it. So it becomes personalized. So when I see another human being, I don't treat him like a process. I treat him like a person. So now he will also treat me as a person. So now you have two things which are happening. One, the process is treated as a person. Two, becomes personality now. So this is this personality and that is that personality. We might agree, we might disagree, we might fight, we might do whatever it is, but that's basically what it is. So the process is fighting. So two processes are fighting, or two processes are working together, but they don't know internally what really is happening, because that itself is mithya. So he is talking about Brahmena, that is, the Brahma means to delude or to imagine. So this superimposition, that is the chitta, which is having an individual consciousness, treats as an individual entity, and mind believes that it itself is that entity. So the ego will say that, look, you exist. Now the person wants to possess or to throw it off. Whatever he likes or she likes wants to possess, whatever she doesn't like or he doesn't like wants to throw it off. So raga and dvesha work together. So the superimposition can never be an independent entity. 1 second. So now we come to the deluded view of the world. Bhrantasya yat yat, to a deluded man, whatever he perceives. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಫೋನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಹೇಳು ನಾನು ಮೀಟಿಂಗಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳು. ಇಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಫೋನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಡು. ಹೊರಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಫೋನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಹೇಳು. ಭ್ರಾಂತಸ್ಯ ಯತ್ 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 ಭ್ರಮತಃ ಪ್ರತೀತಂ, ಟು ಎ ಡೆಲ್ಯೂಡೆಡ್ ಮ್ಯಾನ್, whatever he perceives appears to him as a delusion. Brahma eva tat tat rajatam hi shuktihi, even Brahman himself and all that is true appears only as a silver in the mother of pearl. Idantaya Brahma sat eva rupyate, all this which is reality is Brahman or truth appears only as a form. Tu aropitam Brahmani nama matram, everything that is merely superimposed on Brahman appears only as a name. So now we need to remove the name and form. This is what the meditation is all about, is to come out of name and form. So what we need to do is, or what I'm really doing for myself is, let's take an example like a wife. Can I see the wife in the entire body of the person who is staying with me? Or do I see anything as a husband in my body? Then going one step further, do I see Vilas itself appearing in this body and where it is getting established? So there is no form. If Vilas had a form, then the form should have stayed as it is. But the form has been changing. If I take my photograph of my 6 months old to 1 year and 2 years and 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, whatever number of years. Or if I take the person who is born and staying with us as a son, if I take his photograph from the day 1 to today, none of the body parts ever show that he has got anything to do with the sun. Because if it was there, it should have remained fixed. Because what is Brahman? Brahman is something which is eternal. What is Jagat? Jagat is something which is not eternal. So Brahman Satya Jagat Mithya. Now if you look at the Jagat portion of it, it's a superimposition. That means it's just an understanding that there is a person who is existing, but in reality no person is existing. How do we come to know? Watch the photographs, watch the events. Every event has changed. So what changes cannot be the truth. What does not change is the truth. Now what changes and what does not change? The consciousness stays in everyone, irrespective of the person remains or does not remain. Those people who have died out of corona or for whatever diseases they have died, or they have died out of accidents, the body is gone, the mind is gone, consciousness doesn't go anywhere. But the individual consciousness, that is the chitta, goes along with the mind. So this consciousness doesn't have to go anywhere or doesn't have to come anywhere. It stays. Whereas the remaining things keeps on moving. So that clarity will be there to any person who sees it. So if we were to see the relationships, or if we were to see the designation given to a person as wife or husband or son or daughter or parent or whatever it is, this is just a designation. There is no real person. There is nothing you can find in that person. You cannot find a father in a person, in that body. Because what is father to me would be a friend for somebody else. So then that whole thing is broken. Like I have a son and he calls me father. But my wife doesn't call me a father. She calls me husband. How is that possible? How can two roles be associated with one body and with one mind? So it is foolishness. We are not clear whether husband is the role to be played forever or a son role has to be played forever. Because if the mother is there, let's say my mother comes, my mother is not going to treat me as a husband. My mother is not going to treat me as her friend. My mother is going to treat me as her son. So for one, I become a son. For another, I become a husband. For another, I become a father. And for another, I become a friend. For another, I become a brother. Which is stupidity. It's just a play of name and forms. This is the Bhranti. This is the delusion. That the person who is playing the role feels that he really is that person. Now it is stuck. Because there is no job description to say what the father should do and shouldn't do. It depends on the culture, it depends on the tradition, it depends on the particular home and particular place and particular expectation. So no two fathers do the same kind of role. Over archiving role is same as a father. But then since the father role keeps on differing between two people, so the children will say my father is good and your father is not good, or your father is good and my father is not good. Because then the perception can be like this. Only because we are having name and forms, you can compare. And because there is name and form, a person can compete. And because there is a name and form, a person will have a compulsive attitude to do be this or that. And ultimately has to go for a compromise because of the name and form. And all of this is happening in the mind. Nothing is happening out there on the Brahman. So it only appears as a form. No form really exists. I don't think so. Anybody will be able to find their husband or a wife or a daughter or a son or a daughter-in-law or a son-in-law or whatever that is given as a form. No, it's a designation. And when the person goes to the office, he is given another designation. Can be a manager, can be a software engineer, can be a vice president, can be director, can be this and can be that. How can the person then believe that he is that? No. It's just a name. Name cannot be imprinted on Brahman. Not possible. Form cannot be imprinted on the Brahman. Again, not possible. So who's dying? The name and form. So why should somebody cry? There's no need. It appears and disappears. The designation comes, the designation goes. Let's say I was working for the company and I resigned, and then I'm dead in that company. No longer I have any authority to sign on any document. Even if they were to put a photograph of me that, look, you're such a good manager or whatever it is, and put a garland on that, it doesn't really matter. Or even if they don't do that, also doesn't matter, because the name and form no longer exist. So this is the crux. The crux here is that name and form should be removed from the mind. The fear factor is on the name and form. Just like we have created a thing called as corona, and nobody knows what is corona, nobody knows how it comes, whatever is the name, where is the form? There is no form. We have just named something for identification. And what is corona? It's a virus. Okay, great. What is a virus? And there's no answer to that. Okay, we can give some scientific explanation. But how does it come to be? So, we can only talk about concepts. So, we again can give conceptual answer to that and say that because of this, this will come, because of that, that will come, and all that. But that is the naming. But if we were to go and ask that virus, are you the virus? Tell me for sure. What it would tell you? Nothing. Let's take a bacteria. We just named it. But if we ask that bacteria, are you the bacteria? Can you identify? Even if it identifies just a name, there is no form. For whatever form it looks, we have given a name. So for whatever tree it looks, we have given the name. For whatever animal it looks, we have given a name for identification. But really that doesn't exist. Let's say I have a pet dog and I call that something. And I keep on calling something, something, please come here. And hearing to that, it comes. It's not that because it is named something and it knows that from day one it was called something, and it comes. And I keep on telling that name something, 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 and it comes. So that something one day dies because that rupa ends there. So the form ends there because the consciousness is away. So now what should I say? Something died. Because there is no longer the next movement. For that next movement, the consciousness should have been there. If consciousness was something, it wouldn't have left that body. Because consciousness has no interest in that something, it left the body. Because its karma got over to be in that body. So it took the mind along with it and left. So what is lying here is just a carcass. And from the beginning also it was a carcass. It was growing and growing and maturing, and all that was happening because the consciousness was able to move these elements. Now the consciousness is not there to move the element. Element stays wherever they were. So when they burn or when I put it in the ground and then cover it up and put a big stone thing, something born so and so date, died so and so date, I am making a fool of myself. It was never born, it's never dead. Because now it is going to take another shape based upon whatever its karma is. So it becomes a a real problem to consider something which is not true as real. So, for those people who cannot get to this, so what Madhvacharya did is to say that look, for removing this name and form, it's not that easy. You require the blessing of Sri Hari. So you pray to Sri Hari, and then only you will be able to see that it's just the play of name and form. There is no reality as such. So in that way, Brahman is real and Jagat is also real. But in true sense, Brahman is the only real and Jagat has no itself reality. Then we come to the verse number 237. One minute. Ataha param brahma sat advitiyatam vishuddha vijnana ghanam niranjanam prashantam adi anta vihinam akriyam nirantara ananda rasa swarupam. So, though the Supreme Brahman is non-dual reality, Sat Advitiyam, full of pure knowledge, the light of the essence of things, it is taintless, Niranjanam, supreme peace, Prashantam, Adi Anta Vihinam Akriyam, is timeless, without beginning or the end. Akriyam, Kriya is activity, so no Kriya. Nirantarananda rasa swarupam. It's always of the nature of the absolute bliss. So, nirasta maya krita sarva bhedam nityam sukham nishkalam aparameyam arupam avyaktam anakyam avyayam jyotihi swayam kinchitidam chakasthi. So it transcends the Maya and all her diversities. What is Maya? Maya is a play of names and forms. That's all. You treat a form, call a name, lose the form, lose the name. That's all. That is Maya. So we keep on creating name, losing that name. If husband is created, husband is going to die. Child is created, child is going to go away. Wife is created, wife is going to go away. So everything that is created eventually will go away. Whereas what is transcended from that Maya, that is, whoever transcends the Nama and Rupa, will understand that it is eternal. Sukham, it is joy, because there is nothing to lose. See, when you don't have a husband or a wife, what will you lose? When you don't have an office, what will you lose? When you don't have any activity at all, what would you lose? When you don't have any body and mind at all, what would you lose? Nothing. So you have joy right here, right now. And it's indivisible. Now I can see consciousness everywhere. No longer the name and form are going to bind me. So because there is wife and a son, consciousness seems to have got split it into three parts now. One with husband, one with son, one with the wife. Now this Nama and Rupa not there. All the three are only consciousness. So it is indivisible, immeasurable. Why? It's there everywhere. In whichever being I see, right from Brahma to the person who is in the hell, Naraka, all are play of consciousness only. There's nothing else other than consciousness. Arupam, formless. Because I cannot give a form. Where is the husband form? It's not there. It's arupa. Avyaktam, unmanifest. It doesn't manifest. Anakhyam, nameless. Avyayam, immutable. It is homogeneous in nature. Jyoti Swayam, self-effulgent. It doesn't require any source. Obviously, if something were to exist in everyone and everything, why it requires any fire source? It itself is a source. Kinchit idam chakasti. Whatever is manifested is that only. How it got manifested? Due to name and form. Then, Gnat Gnatru Gneya Jnana Shunyam Anantam Nirvikalpam Nirvikalpakam Kevala Akhanda Chinmatram Param Tattvam Vidur Buddha. So free of triads, that is Raga, Dvesha, Moha, or Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, or distinction of knower, the knowledge and the known, is infinite, it can transcend, it is pure, it is indivisible, absolute knowledge. Such is the supreme truth sages have realized. Aheyam anupadeyam mano vacham agocharam aparameyam anadi antam brahma purnam aham mahaha. It can be neither be rejected, diminished or subtracted, nor accepted, accumulated or added. You cannot utpada. Aheyam is diminishing. So we can't create nor we can destroy. Manovacham agocharam, beyond the limits of mind and speech. Aparameyam anadi antam, immeasurable, without any beginning and the end. Brahma purnam aham mahaha. Such is all full Brahman or reality. This is the I, the original I. I think we can end now because the next one talks about this Tattvamasi. Shall we continue or what do you say?
I am fine.
You're fine? Okay.
No, I think
I am okay to
have
continue.
a call from 10 o'clock, so I want to be prepared for that.
What time you want to drop off? Another 5-10 minutes? Padma Shri,
Yeah,
what time you want to drop off? 5-10 minutes?
5-10 minutes is fine. Okay, sir.
Okay, fine then. This
At
one
least 9:45 I want to drop off.
Okay, no problem. This is a very beautiful one. I'll cover this and we can close it. So
I will just disconnect and connect. There is some voice problem here.
Okay, sure.
You go ahead.
No, I will wait. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, but are you okay now?
Still I have problem. You just go ahead. I will again disconnect. Somehow the voice is not coming properly.
The connection is not good. Overall, I think I thought it is my network connection issue.
It may be then with the Vilas.
In general, there is some problem.
Or maybe generally
for me it is coming it is bad network quality in my.
Okay, so we'll continue.
I'll shift to mobile mode. Let's see.
Okay, I'll continue. Tattvamasi, tattvam padabhyam abhidhiya manayoho brahma atmanoho shoditayoho yat itam shrutya tayoho tattvamasi iti samyog ekatvam eva pratipadyate muhuhu. So now we have three terms here. One by the term tat, that, tvam, thou, art, asi, all the three. So let's take the tat. So the Ishvara is the macrocosm and the Jiva is the microcosm. Both are conditioned within Brahman. So when their conditionings are eliminated in that way, that means the Ishvara and Jiva become part of Brahman only. Shrutya tayoho tattvamasi iti samyag. The Shrutis prescribe that by taking their absolute or implied meanings, then tattvamasi refers to Brahman only. So there is no separate entity called Ishvara and Jiva. They all exist as same. If Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, all the three were to be different, then they have an independent existence. Since all of them appear in Brahman, the Jagat here is the senses and the name and form. Jiva is misunderstanding that I exist, and Ishvara is seemingly like an individual entity, but is a supreme entity in everything. So only Ishvara can exist as Brahman. Nothing else can have existence except for superimposition. This is what the Mahavakya is all about. That thou art, tattvam asi. So Jiva doesn't have its own existence, Jagat doesn't have its own existence, Ishvara doesn't have its own existence except for it is part of Brahman. So Ishvara becomes Brahman. The other two in their own essence is part of Brahman, and hence Brahman is the only Satya. There is other things seemingly like life exists is Mithya only. It is like they appear in the awakened state of mind but disappear immediately once the person goes to deep sleep. So in that there is no Jagat and there is no Jiva. What overlooks everything in every way is the Ishvara, which is part of Brahman. That is the only Satya. So this person has to come out of it. That he feels Jagat is real, Jiva is real, Ishvara is real. But none of that is real. Only Brahman is the real. Any question? Because Jagat and Ishvara, Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara is created out of name and form. So all of those entities are false. They appear in Brahman only. This is most complicated one. So if you want, we can stop here today and do it tomorrow on this verse only.
I think we can stop. I am not able to really this one. There's a continuous breakage of voice.
Okay. So
Network
Yeah,
issue, I
same
think,
for me.
my side.
So for me
Yeah,
also.
same for me
So
also.
today I was not
Continue
able to
tomorrow.
listen
Okay.
properly.
I think it was on Vilas' side there was a problem.
maybe, I don't know, because I am able to hear all the three of you without any problem.
Is it?
Yeah.
I tried all three
Yeah.
mobile network as well as other two. I am having Wi-Fi, Airtel and Jio, all same.
Yeah, I was also been switching from
But
one
it was
to
working
one
fine
to
for
another,
my
but
other
then still
meeting.
it is completely
Probably
breaking. So
some issue
actually,
between you and
I
us.
hardly heard anything properly.
Okay, so let me check the speed test. What happens? Let me see whether my side is the problem. Right now it is showing 30 Mbps, 33, 35. Yeah, that is a download speed.
It is then outside of your network.
Yeah.
Sometimes it happens at that country level, no? Big network.
Correct. And upload
Okay,
is,
then. Thank you. Good day.
yeah, good day then. So we will do it tomorrow. Okay, bye.
Yeah, sure. Bye.
Okay, bye.